Hello everyone, welcome to Timsy Naked Tarots and welcome to Signs on Sunday. As always with Signs on Sunday, the signs are personal to you. What I might see as a sign you may not. For instance, we are doing nights for K, and that is night spelt with a K like in shining armour, not daytime and nighttime. And to me, the sign I got was I saw a knight on a back of a lorry. I think it might have been called Knights of something or other. And I was thinking about what to do for K. I was going through in my head lists of various different things beginning with K. And I saw it and I thought, well, that's it. That's my sign. We will do Knights. Okay, so to me, that was just that. Now, to you, seeing Knights on the back of a lorry might have meant something totally different. And that is perfectly all right and perfectly acceptable because signs are all unique to us, just the same as the tarot reads or fortune telling in any shape, way or form is all unique to us, and it's how we take on the message and interpret the message to our own lives and situations, which makes it unique to us, even if it is a general read, which is what you always get on YouTube because it's being done for more than one person. Okay, so when I first started thinking about Knights, after I settled on Knights for what we are doing, I started thinking about loyalty, honesty, honor, justice, defense, okay, attack in some cases. But then I also started thinking of dishonesty, injustice, because sometimes the knights took their power and used it badly. Okay, so it all depended on the person. Okay, power has this way of corrupting people. It's the same as money. Money has this way of corrupting people, but ultimately it all boils down to the person nowadays and how strong they may be at actually resisting the urge to use their power or their money or their influence for things which ain't quite right. Okay, so yeah, a knight could be just as bad as they are good, and in some cases they used to fight against each other. Now they both believed they were fighting on the right side. They were both standing up for what they believed was right at the time. Now there can only be one winner, but anyway, knights also come in all shapes and sizes. We can look back to the Middle Ages when they were cladded in armour and rode big horses, and you can go right up to modern day knights, which although they don't wear armour anymore, they still do the same sort of things. They still stand up for people. They stand up for when they see injustice and things like that, and they will try to fight for what is good and what is right, obviously in their eyes. Now, basically this urge, this feeling to stand up and fight for what right, it all starts to fall in a code of conduct, a way of living, a way of being. Okay, and for the knights, the knightly code of conduct was basically to show bravery. Yeah, if you see a group of people, I don't know, picking on a person, and you decide you're going to stand up, you're going to get in the way, you're going to back up this person, you're being brave. Okay, especially if there's more on one side than the other. Knights were also meant to show strength. Well, you're showing strength in the same way, and prowess. I said it wrong again. Prowess. Now, prowess is basically your skill in battle or your skill in whatever you're undertaking. Okay, with that in mind come some other things. You normally are standing up for some sort of underdog as a knight. And by doing that, you are showing respect. You are showing respect to the defenseless, the respect to the poor, the respect to women or the fairer sex. Because you may be a woman as a knight. It doesn't matter. I'm not saying you are a knight, but I'm saying when you're getting signs of knights and things. And there is also this great sense of loyalty and generosity to the Lord, the person you have chosen to serve. Now, if you're serving a king, it'll be your king. If you're going back into the medieval times, you're serving some landlord like the Sheriff of Nottingham. I know it's not the best one to pick because he was a bit of a bad person, but if you're serving that person, if you're, let's just say, a sheriff of a county or something like that, then you are loyal to that person, and they will tell you what to do. And you may have like reservations about doing it, but they're doing it for the greater good, so I will follow through with the orders. You also would be generous to your friends and your family. A knight, although they accumulated wealth, they wouldn't keep it. They would spread it out amongst their what's the right word? Society, their local area and things. Okay, so as I said, sometimes the knights were like an armed wing of a religious group. Okay, you got like the Knights Templar. We've all heard of the Knights Templar, or if you haven't, you now just have. And the Knights Templar was basically the religious army. It went over to Bethlehem or Jerusalem and fought against the indigenous people of that area. I can't think what they're called off the top of my head. Arabians, I suppose. And the Arabian Knights, yes, it would have been. And they thought they were doing it for the right. It was the birthplace of Christianity. It was the birthplace of Christ. And they, after all, were the Roman Catholics. So it's only right that we have control of that city, that town, that hill, that stable. But the Arabians were like, well, no, it's actually part of our land. It's actually part of our country. It's not like it's on a border. It's not a border dispute. You've had to traipse through loads of our country to get here first. So a war broke out, and yeah, but the Templar Knights, or the Knights Templar, went on to become other things, and some may believe that they have gone on to become controlling factions of the world as we know it. Others do not. It's a bit of a conspiracy theory. We're not diving deep into that. I think I raised enough red flags on my last video, considering it took about 8.5 hours to process a 30-minute video YouTube. Okay, so yeah, I will try not to raise any more red flags on this particular one. But you also had like the Knights of the Round Table, King Arthur's Knights of the Round Table, and they were all about truth and justice and putting the world to rights. But even they had their failings. Yeah, you had Lancelot, who allegedly slept with Lady Guinevere, who was Arthur's wife. Okay, and allegedly they produced a child between them. But again, this is mythological now, I suppose. And although I always believe that all what a myth is an older version of a legend, and a legend is an older version of a great story, and a great story is an older version of a true account what happened at some time. It's just the other way around, if that makes sense. But so something happened. It may not have been King Arthur, and it may not have been Lancelot, and it may not have been Guinevere, but it was a big ruling power within a country at the time. It was someone serving that ruler of that power, that household, if you will, and it may have been his wife, it may have been a daughter, but there was some sort of love interest what happened, and it created a friction, and things started to fall apart because of it. But that roughly has translated into a legend, a myth, a fable, if you will. And yeah, it rolls on. But again, I'm digressing. I do tend to digress in these, don't I? Now let's find him back on my notes where I was. Yes, a religious arm. They're an armed religion, or an armed wing of a religion is where we got to, weren't it? So, and sometimes they can just be a single person. As you have things called hedge knights. Hedge knights were people who were not born into knighthood. Okay, because you can be born into knighthood. Your family could be landed lords or landed ladies or something like that, and you're born and you got all the money and the trappings you need to get yourself your suit of armor, and you went out and you lived by your code, but you always served your family. Now, a hedge knight used to be someone who, through their skill and their prowess, had got to a point of being knighted. Now, anyone can be knighted, okay, even in this day and age, and they can be knighted by another knight. And that's how most hedge knights got knighted. Talking about the Crusades earlier, lots of the knights from the Crusades were kind of hedge knights. They didn't have land. They didn't have a castle. Yeah, they were just soldiers who had been knighted by a knight because they showed some extra special bravery or extra special prowess on the battlefield. And the knights of the time, or the knights of the Middle Ages and things, they would have formed like the heavy cavalry for a king's army, or a landlord's army, a landed knight's army. Or sometimes they would be like put in the front of a unit to be like a figurehead, a figure of inspiration, to put bravery and encouragement into the troops who were normally didn't want to be there, and they'd been just dragged there by their landowners to fight for whatever reason. They didn't really care what the reason was. They just thought, get the fight out of the way and then we can go home. Okay, so they would instill the bravery, and they were just generally brave people. And knights of today are still generally brave people. When you stand up against something what everyone else is just ignoring, but you think it's right, and you stand up there and say, let's not do this, this is wrong, you are being brave. And that's kind of what it all boils down to. Now, let's have a look at what this actually means spiritually, because that's what we are talking about with Signs on Sundays. We're not just generally picking a random word and then diving into the histories of it, but I do know a little bit about knights. I have spent a lot of my youth and things actually sort of like, I don't know, enjoying knight type films and things like that. And it's kind of interesting, actually. The word cavalry, which is like the heavy artillery, actually originates from an Italian word which means chivalrous, okay, or chivalry, which is what knights were known for. They were chivalrous. Okay, so getting back into the signs of it, it all depends on what sort of knight you are seeing, what sort of knight you are getting signs for, what colour the knight may be, okay, how they are armed, if they are armed, if they've got shields, if they're in armour or not. They all have various different relevances and things, and as always, it is independent to you, okay, how it fits into your situation. For instance, a medieval knight is symbolizing courage and honor and service. Okay, they would have sort of the main things of a knight. They were normally in service to someone else. They were always honorable. They were always trying to do the right thing, and they were always brave and had courage to tackle whatever it may be. There was also an element of commitment. They had committed themselves to a quest or a person. Dedication. They would see that quest or the orders from that person through to the end, even if it meant their death. Which brings us on to selflessness. Okay, their life was just as meaningful to them as anyone else's, but they were willing to lay down their life to further their cause. Okay, and in some cases, on a much lesser level, they show off an element of wealth, especially knights from the Middle Ages, because a suit of armor is not cheap. It would not be cheap now, and it definitely was not cheap back then. So knights, they can also be seen and used as messengers as well. So as with all the signs, as I keep saying, it does depend on your situation and how they come into play with your signals and your synchronicities and things. For instance, the colours of the knight. If you have a red knight, you would be looking at the signs and synchronicities of like red as well as knights, and then combining the two. For instance, in the tarot deck, death, the death card in the tarot deck, is normally portrayed with a black knight on it. Even if that knight is a skeletal knight, it is still a knight in armour on a horse. Okay, I'm just seeing if I've got one out on my deck at the moment, but I don't think I have, and I definitely don't think I'm lucky enough to have one just sitting on the top of my deck. But anyway, you can Google this. The Right Away Tarot has a black knight on the horse. It's normally always a white horse, but it's a black knight. And black knights were seen to represent death and disaster. Okay, so if you had a black knight as your sign, then it could be indicating death from the tarot card. Change. Something's literally coming to an end, and something is being renewed from it. A resurrection, if you will, as well. But it also depends if your knight was armed or not. Well, if your sign was like a knight with, I don't know, a sword in one hand and a morning star in the other, you could expect some sort of conflict coming towards you. If your knight was on a horse, you can expect whatever this sign is trying to tell you, it's going to happen fast because you've got the power and the speed of the horse. If it wasn't on a horse, you can expect this is going to be a slow, gradual build-up, or it's going to be a while before it actually happens. And so we have them. In my notes, I've just realised I've just covered one, which was actually further down in my notes. So, yeah, it all depends. If your knight had a shield but no weapon, for example, is defend yourself. There's something coming towards you. You need to defend yourself, because that's another sign that knights can be. You need defense of some description. You might see these signs in any shape or form. As I said, I actually saw one on the back of a lorry, which is the thing what spurred me on to do Knights for K. Okay, so yeah, let's just turn my notes onto the next page. Oh, I'm having real trouble swallowing today. Right, we also have Knights in the Tarot. Okay, as I said, on the Death card there is a Knight, but you've also got the 4 Knights of the Suits, which they could sometimes just literally mean travel or movement. Okay, other times it might mean that you should be concentrating on your life path. Sometimes they might mean there's a person coming into your life, generally younger than you, but who embodies the code of conduct of knights. They follow certain patterns. They might be very brave, they might be very generous, they might be very selfless, and things like that. And all the knights in the tarot, they all have their own various different meanings. So you got the Knight of Swords, and this is fast movement. Okay, the Knight of Swords is normally portrayed as someone charging on a horse. Okay, they've received their orders from whatever they are loyal to, and they are rushing off to fulfill them. Now, sometimes they might just be rushing into trouble because they haven't fought their way through it, but other times they're just rushing off to get the job done. The Knight of Pentacles is like, they're kind of like stubborn. They're set on a course. They've worked out how they're going to do something, and nothing is going to change them from that. Okay, which also causes them to be a bit on the slow side. And I don't mean slow as in it takes them a while to work things out. I mean slow as in because they're thinking about one thing and one thing only, and they are blinkered in that direction, and they're only going to go that way, and they're going to be stubborn about it, and you can't change what they're going to do and things. It sometimes means they're taking the longer route, and they don't get it done quite as quick. But the other thing with the Knight of Pentacles is it does always fulfill the order. Okay, whatever it's been asked to do, it will fulfill it. Okay, and they are very reliable and trustworthy, the Knight of Pentacles. Now, in contrast to that, we have the Knight of Wands. Now, the Knight of Wands is very unpredictable, very flighty, very passion-led. If something piques its passion more than what it's doing, it will go off to that instead, which makes it a little bit unreliable. Okay, it is very quite often called the player card out on the tarot deck. I think that's a little bit unjust for it. It's, yes, a player might have these kind of like attributes like the Knight of Wands to have. It sees a target, it goes after the target, and I know I'm talking about a person as a target here, but let's rephrase it all then. It sees a person, it goes after a person, it gets what they want out of the person, and then they leave. They go off to the next mission, because that's what knights do. That's what players do. They go off to the next person. Okay, so I can see and understand why the Knight of Wands is called the player card, but I do think a lot of people just jump on that too quick, because they are quite determined, and they are inspirational. And as this, it makes them very good leaders, or it gives them a great leadership. A Knight of Wands in a person, within the elements of a person, would be a great leader. They might be an arsehole, but they're very good at making people follow what they want to do. And they instill inspiration. Okay. Yeah. And they could also just represent like foreign travel, or travelers from a foreign field, and changes and challenges. So as well as all these, we also have the Knight of Cups. Okay. And I've just gone on to the wrong page. That's the page I want to be. It's lucky I knew what the next page started with. We also have the Knight of Cups. And this is a person who is normally troubled by not knowing where the truth ends and where the lies begin. Because no matter who you come across, we lie. We all lie. We might just have little white lies about things. We might have these huge, massive lies. But we all lie. And we all tell the truth to a certain point. And then we embellish, we exaggerate, sometimes to make us feel bigger and prouder because we are a bit vain. Sometimes we, whatever the opposite of exaggerate is, to make things look less than they are because we're ashamed or worried about what the truth is actually. But we all tend to do it, and we all like to believe we don't, but we do. And a Knight of Cups is the sort of person who doesn't see where it starts and stops. Okay. As well as that, it is also about bringing messages of love and fortune and your future. Okay. How you see your future panning out. So in dreams, which is probably the place we will get most of our signs from, generally, but most of our signs from knights as well. We don't often see knights walking around the street. We don't see one on its horse, clip-clopping down the local high street to tie up its horse and go into the pub for a swift pint. So, yes, okay, maybe you might go to medieval days or Renaissance days and things like that where you might see people dressed up as knights. It doesn't necessarily mean they are knights. Perhaps they do try to live by that same code of conduct knights used to live by, but they also have the day-to-day life or modern life they have to squeeze into it all. So in dreams is where we will get most, and this is where you will get all your separations for all the different things. You wouldn't have when you see the knights in dreams, you have to think about the colour of the knight, the weaponry the knight might be having, and the weaponry in itself will all have specific meanings to it. A sword will mean something different than a club, for example, or a mace, which is what was commonly used by a knight. They didn't have something as common as a club. That's just a stick. They used to have a bit of metal around it and called it a mace. So anyway, yeah. So in dreams, knights could be an indication of you have to put something right, which you have let go wrong. Okay, something made wrong. Maybe you realise that you lied to someone inadvertently, and you have to go and tell on the truth. It's like, oh, yeah, remember I told you that my car was like really good? Well, it's not. It's really crap, or something like that. It's a right what needs to be. It's a wrong that needs to be righted, basically. The other thing that knights could indicate is you need to work on yourself spiritually. Okay, because even if knights weren't connected with a religious group, they were quite spiritual at heart. They would quite often spend hours in meditation at the beginning of the day, putting their mind in order, straightening things out. So when they faced the outside world, they weren't going to be swayed. They weren't going to be taken off their path. Knights can also appear as guides in your dream. Like the messengers, as they are in the tarot, they can appear as guides in your dream. They're guiding you somewhere, which you may need to have strength to go to. You may need strength to tackle the issue they're guiding you towards. On a sort of a pragmatic level, knights can be an indication that you have to start dedicating yourself to a project you have undertaken, or you have to pick up a project to finish it off, because the knight was always on a quest of some description, a quest of honor, a quest of loyalty, a quest be set upon him by his lord. Like, for instance, all Arthur's knights ended up scouring the world looking for the Holy Grail, because Arthur was poorly and he needed that to put right what he had done wrong. Okay. They can also signify new love within in a love setting. If your dream is about a love or something like that, they can indicate a new love coming in or a new development within your love life happening. Now, if you've had any dreams about knights or any experiences with knights, a bit like my knight on the back of the lorry, which made me choose doing this for this week's episode, feel free to drop them in the comments and let me know about them. Also, if you have anything for our next one, which is L, again, feel free to drop that in the comment. Let me know what you want, because at the end of the day, I'm trying to do this for you, so it's easier for you to find the answers for what you're looking for. If I don't get many comments or any comments about what we want to do for next week, come about a Tuesday afternoon, I will probably do a post, maybe doing another vote on the things I've kind of worked out in my head of what we might do. Or possibly I will just go to Google, type in the spiritual meaning of L and see what comes up at the top of the list, which is where I get some of my ideas from anyway. I like to keep everything transparent and let you know. So if you like this, that is fantastic. It is going to be, as always, a premiere, so there will be a live chat. I really should have said this at the beginning, not the end, but hey ho, I will get this sorted one day. And this is all quite new to me. I've only done, 7, something like that. But yeah, live chat, drop it in the live chat. I'm going to be there when it goes on live on the premiere. If you missed the premiere and you're watching this as a recording, don't hesitate, put them in the comments instead. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoy this, and hopefully it means something for you. Enjoy the rest of your weekend if you are watching in the early hours or earlier part of Sunday over in the west of the world. Enjoy your week for everyone else. Catch you all soon.